Cool. Okay, so you can see me now. We are good to go. So again, we are in my living room, and we done a video a couple of days ago that we put onto the YouTube channel, and that video was a product shoot shot at home. And what we wanted to do is give you a breakdown of that shoot. Now, the video that we did produce already gives a bit of an insight into it in a bit more of a cinematic fashion. But what I wanted to do is go live and just talk and explain to you about some of the things that I chose to do on this particular setup. So at the moment, I'm not filming with a professional DSLR. This is coming from my mobile phone because we're still waiting for a Blackmagic Mini to come, basically, which will allow us to do live streams through video cameras. Because of everybody being locked up, there is a huge global demand for these. So, but yeah, we thought that wouldn't hinder our ability to bring you fresh and exciting content. So in terms of what we've done for this shoot, I'm going to walk you through the overall setup and just explain a few things. So let me just swap sides, and I'm just going to double check my audio. Yep, we have audio. Good, good, good. So in terms of my overall layout here, I'm shooting a loop deck CT, okay, and I chose to use a 3-point light setup. Now, the reason I chose to use a 3-point light setup is because you really want to add 3 dimensions to any image or video that you're trying to produce. 1 light, you can do that to a certain degree. 2 lights, you can do it with a little bit more effect, but 3 lights and onwards is where you really start to have a lot of creative control. And 3 lights can sometimes intimidate people because you're thinking, oh God, there's so much going on. And I personally believe that 3 lights or sort of 2 lights onwards only becomes intimidating when you are not controlling them. And what I mean by that is if you're just using bare bulb or a big, huge softbox, it's very difficult to control the light, and therefore it then becomes very challenging to create the effects that you're looking to do. So what you'll notice in all of this here, everything is being modified, everything's being shaped, okay? It'll either be with a grid or a set of barn doors or a Fresnel. That just gives me the pinpoint accuracy that I need to be able to light up different areas within this shoot. And if I was using a big softbox, the effect that I'm trying to create would be limited. So what I'm going to do is just take you through the setup step by step. So if you are watching, thank you ever so much for joining. Really appreciate you coming along. If you haven't seen the video that we published a few days, it will be good to watch this and then go back and reference the other video that we created, and you can see what's actually going on through the camera perspective, you know. So when I'm explaining it, you'll see what the camera actually sees. We had a few really interesting comments on the last video, and people very happy with kind of the breakdown of the shoot, and it gave them some creative ideas. So hopefully this will sort of extend that further. Now, I've had to create a mini studio, okay? So in terms of creating a mini studio, this is my living room table. My sofa is over there. I'm very much in my lounge. And so I've had to create an environment where I can control light, okay? So the way I've done this is by using this. So this is parcel paper or wrapping paper for presents or deliveries and things like that. I use this to create a blacked out area. So we don't need that anymore. We'll get rid of that. So I use that to create a blacked out area, and that just gives me the ability to control the light. If the light was spilling on the white wall or onto the table, there'd be a lot of ricochet, a lot of bounce back of the light, and I would lose the ability to control it and define what I'm trying to do. So by creating this surface, it's given me a little bit of an opportunity to control the light. Now, you could do this anywhere. You don't have to use a table. You could use the corner of a room. There's loads of places you could use to do it. Or you can even go and buy a specific product box to do this. The reason I didn't use a product box is because I need a little bit more room in terms of what I was trying to do with the light setup. But of course, you can condense this down and use it in a much smaller space. And then I also used a Perspex board here. Now, there's some illusions here. This is being held up by duct tape. So, you know, it doesn't have to be fancy because remember, you're only showing people what you want to show them, and we're certainly not going to show them that. So I use this Perspex board with a reflective sheet, and that just gives me a little bit of a reflective coming back up from the base, and it just adds a little bit more dimension to the overall shoot that we're trying to achieve. So I'll set that back up as normal, and we have that there. Now, here is a little tip for you. If you go on Amazon or anywhere, you can get these. Now, these are called Lazy Susans, and it's basically a spinning platform. So if you wanted to create B-roll or create images where, you know, there's movement to it, this will certainly do it. I know a lot of 360 photographers that use something like this to create 360 images. So what they will do is they will shoot an image on a certain time point as it spins and stitch them all together, or they will film it and do it. Now, the reason they tend to take photos is because they will edit each of those photos in Photoshop. And that means if you're not shooting in a studio and there are some imperfections, doing stills and editing into video will give you the ability to give you a more polished look. If you have a pristine studio environment, of course, video is going to be the better option. So it's well worth sort of exploring both of those, but this is a handy tip, well worth doing. Now, in terms of how I go about shooting, you can use a light meter to measure all your lighting, making sure it's absolutely accurate. I personally don't use that. I would tend to say I'm kind of a, I'm a very visual, I like to see it for myself, and I use a mirrorless system. So for me, I kind of know exactly what's going on with the light. And because we're using LED, what we see is what we get. If I was using flash, I would use my light meter to measure it more accurately. But because I'm using LED lights, it's far easier to look at. And obviously you can then check for color and things like that. So there are options to have there. So whilst you're indoors and you're sort of thinking about creative ways to do it, you can do this with one light, okay? So you could very easily just have this as a rim light, or you could have this as a key, or this as a backing light. So you can do them like that. Now what we've done is we've chosen a 3-point light setup, as mentioned before. The key light is this guy here, okay? So in terms of this is using, I'm just gonna switch this off. So this is using a Bowens reflector. Now I'm going to show you the little marking on that says Bowens. I previously worked at Bowens many years ago, and this is a hard reflector that is probably 40 to 50 years old, okay? It's original Bowens. It uses the original S-mount adapter. So it's solid metal, it's good quality, it's kind of beaten up a little bit. But what we have developed is this guy here, which is a Bowens adapter. So for our FROZA 60, which has a mini Bowens adapter, you can now basically take these light shapers and modifiers and add them to it. Now, if you go on Amazon or eBay or into your local photo retail or anywhere in the world, you will find every manufacturer has a version of a Bowens light. So there's so many options in terms of modifiers. For the modifier that we've used here, we've used this hard reflector, and again, that's just to give us real accuracy over what we're trying to achieve. So this mounts onto the front of the unit. The code for the product, if you're interested, and I'll put links down below, is SABAFZ60, and it's the Bowens adapter for the FROZA 60, and it will allow you to use all of the light shapers for FROZA 300 and 500 with your 60. So this just mounts onto there like so. We then bring the bracket up to the top so it doesn't get in the way of the menu system. Plug that in. I will then add this guy in. Clips on, so there's a little clip there. You can see how easy it goes in. Switch on, and we are good to go. Now I'm just going to swap sides, because what we're trying to do here in terms of lighting, by using this grid, we are basically just trying to light a small fraction of this here. And you'll see in the B-roll that we did yesterday, you can see that there's a lighting on this area here, and that's coming from this source, which is our key. Now, a key doesn't have to light everything. This is just the first light that we're using to create the image. So this would be our key. Then we move into a kicker. So my kicker over here, I'm using another FROZA 60, and what I've also got on there is the FL11 Fresnel. So the FL11 Fresnel will give me the ability to intensify the spot of the light. So I can either have a very broad spread, or I can have a very sort of accurate smaller spread. Of course, I'm going to want an accurate smaller spread, and because I want to control it even further, what I'll be doing at this point is just closing those barn doors, okay? So that makes them a little bit more tighter, and you'll see, maybe not from this image here, but you can see as that light passes across the loop deck, you can start to see the effect it has on the corner, and it's just helping to separate us from this black background. Now, we shot, anywhere from 2.8 up to f6, depending on what we were trying to achieve in terms of the overall clarity of the image, but this was the second light that we set up, okay? So 2 FROZAs currently to create what we've got here. Then over the top, we use the Pavotube 15C with a grid. Now, the reason we've used this grid, again, is just to control the light. So as I move it, you can see where that light is falling on. Ideally, I want it to catch this top edge of the unit here. And what I also want to do is I want it to complement I want it to complement the actual product itself. So just create this edge. If it's laying down here, there's a lot of spill underneath. So what we've done in the video before is we angled it to here. So you can see if I just tighten that slightly, if I just tighten that like so, and then I angle it back like here. So what that's now going to do is you'll notice the spread is no longer falling behind the product, it's catching the edge of it. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. And again, that's because I'm using modifiers, so grids and barn doors, just to give us more control. And I think that's something that's really crucial to underline when we're doing product or video photography indoors. Control is your friend, okay? The more you can control the light, the better results you'll get. My other piece of really important advice will be, go one by one. So you might look at this setup and think, okay, I'm gonna go away and start doing this setup. If you set them all up at the same time, and you find something's not right, it's very difficult to understand where the issue lies. You can look at it with a bit of experience and kind of, that's not right or it is right. My best advice to you would be, go light by light. If we was intending to light the backdrop, my first intention would be to light the backdrop. I'd light the backdrop and then I would move further, closer to the camera. So I would light here, then I would look at the product and then look at any other ambient light that I need to create in this scene. Because we're not lighting the backdrop, I didn't need to worry about that, so I started with my key, okay? But otherwise, I would start the back of the studio and bring yourself forward. So for instance, if we were using a white backdrop and we wanted to create a color cast, I would focus on turning that this way to create that effect and then shooting in. What you would notice is we would have this color change on the backdrop as opposed to on the product. We separate this part of the light setup to this part of the light setup and so on and so forth. That way it's very easy to control what's going on. If, for instance, you wanted to take this a little bit further and you didn't want any of this color cast spilling onto the product, you could use boards. Now they can be small polystyrene boards. To do that in a studio, you would have tall poly boards. We're not in a studio, so everything is much smaller and condensed, just as an idea. So that's how we went about doing the shoot yesterday. 3-point light, and we used 3 products. So the FROZA 60, the Pavotube 15C, and a range of light shapers and some old Bowens Heritage light shapers. So hopefully that gives you an idea in terms of how we went about shooting it and some hints and tips. The intention for this video is to, yes, showing you a cinematic video, all edited and flavored up, looks amazing and great, but it doesn't really give you the opportunity to understand why we chose to do those things. And hopefully that breakdown there gives you an insight to why I specifically chose to light in that method and use those pieces of equipment to do it. And again, the real takeaway advice I could give you is, when you're shooting in a confined space, such as home, when we're locked up at the moment, there's not much opportunity to get to a professional studio. If you are shooting at home, control is your best friend. So the more you can control the light through grids, barn doors, creating blackout spaces, the more you control the light, the better results you will get inevitably. And that's the same within a studio as well. So you can amplify this and add it to a car, you can add it to a person, but it's just a very simple 3-point light setup that's controlled quite accurately to give you results. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, do pop them down below. Also as well, Sunday the 19th, please do tune into our social media channels because we are announcing a new exciting product and we would love for you guys to hear about it first. So if you don't sort of follow us already on social media, head over to our channels, give us a like, follow, subscribe, and you will be one of the first to be notified when our new product is announced. And I'm sure you'll be as excited as we are. I'm Luke Curtis from Nanlite. I hope you've enjoyed the video and I'll see you all soon. Take care.